All right. So this is actually something that I think is a big question on everyone's mind. How often does player-based sentiment actually translate into balance? Are the most hated champions often the most OP, or is it all sort of just a mishmash?
Um, this is a $1 million question, and I think one of the most frustrating things that the Riot Balance team deals with is the way people approach balance in League of Legends. It's like, you know what? It's like the fucking who's the dude who did the cave? Is it Socrates or Plato?
Oh,
Who did the
don't
cave?
ask me, man.
Chat, who did the hold on 1 second.
Who did the cave chat? That's a very Plato,
It's
apparently.
Plato. Sorry. There, by the way, there was at one point in time when I went to school and I was much more educated. I will admit I'm really fucking stupid. People tell me this all the time, and they're like, "Why does Blaustoise have a job at Riot? That guy's an idiot." I agree. Like, I am very dumb, because I can't remember this shit. But I think I'm decent at pulling together things that I should know about and other things I should know about, but I'm like woefully unintelligent at both of them, and then stringing them together with like kind of crackpot theories. So the reason why the cave is a good analogy for how we'll look at like NA players. NA players view balance of League of Legends because what they are seeing is they're seeing the fucking shadows of the things behind them reflected on the wall, and that's it. And I'm not saying that the shadows on the wall behind them reflected, yeah, the you guys know how the cave works, right? It's like a bunch of prisoners are chained up and they're looking at a wall and they see these shapes moving by, like the shape of a pot or the shape of a, I don't know, a fucking uh whatever else is in Greek life, a sword. I don't know. They see the shadow of it because there's like a fire burning behind them, and I guess there's like people walking carrying the fucking object. So they see that and like, oh, that's a sword. Oh, that's a pot. But that's not actually what it is. They're only seeing the reflection of or not the reflection. They're seeing the shadow, the outline of it. And it's a whole, I guess, allegory about like, I don't know, truth or whatever. Anyways, I feel like that's how North American players, and not just NA players, I'm sure this is players all over the world, view balance in League of Legends. What they are viewing is they are viewing the shadow of balance as seen from their perspective, chained to their like narrow window of I am a, I don't know, diamond or masters player, and I'm a streamer, and I only care about like this level of balance, and these are the characters I find really annoying and frustrating to play against, and this is the win rate sites that I listen to, and that's the idea of balance that I adhere to. And the problem with that is that the balance team has to consider not just that one siloed perspective. They can't just balance the game for masters tier, just as they can't just balance the game for bronze tier. They have to consider all the tiers. And it gets even more complicated when we find that the things that, because here's the thing, there are things in the game that are strong, and then there's things in the game that are frustrating. And how much those two interact can greatly change someone's perception of balance. There's a lot of characters that are strong um that even pro players or high elo players won't actually complain about as much, just because the nature of the champion, either its play style or its ability pattern, whatever it is, just doesn't feel as bad for whatever reason. But even that is a subjective thing that can change by region. We find that the the kinds of champions that Chinese players complain about versus Korean players versus North American players are actually different. There's all sorts of differences in what they find frustrating. So even if the numerical win rate of those champions is the same across all regions, the frustration that a player might feel towards the play style of that champion when it's slightly stronger will vary by region. And it also varies by elo. And all of those things combined make for this giant mess of trying to understand and trying to see the real form of the balance pot or the balance sword behind you, when oftentimes people only look at the shadow presented in front of them, which is the shadow relevant to their region and relative to their elo bracket.
That was a very in-depth question or answer. I think that was probably the best answer that you could have given based on like it. Like you said, it is the $1 million question. There's no perfect answer for it. So I really appreciate your candor there.
And the other thing is the game, they're never gonna have things correctly balanced. Like so much. Yeah, I mean, you could have
Well,
someone talk for hours on this.
the term balance is very broad in general. Balance at this very basic level is just is A equal to B, and for a game with 150 champions and so many systems in place, it is physically, uh, digitally, and there's no physical way that you can ever achieve perfect balance in a game like this, and they're not designed for that, so it's not necessarily a problem.
Well, the
But
other
it's
idea is perfect balance is also just kind of boring, right? Like the idea of why we
mhm.
play League is that it goes through different states of it goes like balance is a river. That's
Yeah.
my next note. Balance is a river and it flows, you know. Balance is like, or what's the Bruce Lee thing? It's like balance is like water. You put balance into a cup, it becomes a cup. That analogy, we're gonna skip on that analogy. I don't think that one's as good. But in general, I think the difficulty in it lies that people find certain things, regardless of the actual strength, the objective win rate slash play rate of a character. Which, by the way, people argue about that and what's the importance of win rate and play rate of a champion. They argue about that all the time. God, there's any number of complicated discussions around oh, is it the skilled players like the expert one tricks playing the champion that increase the win rate to that level? Is it a bunch of shitters playing the champion that brings it down? There's any number of things that cause that issue. And there's this whole thing where it's like, well, if maybe pro play is the only truth for balance. It's like, no, pro play is not the only truth for balance because those are people playing in a coordinated 5v5 thing with true stakes on the line. I don't play coordinated League of Legends. Solo queue League of Legends is just a individual solo queue League of Legends is literally a solo game masquerading as a team game. Clash is a team game built on top of that solo game. But the idea being that whether it's pro play, elite play, whatever, I'm not an elite play, but whatever high elo platinum diamond play is, low elo, mid elo, all of these things are likely to have champions seem and appear more, or actually champions will just objectively perform better or worse across all those years. And the way in which people view the champions, their sentiment about what's strong or frustrating will change across all this. And then on top of that changes by region. It adds in so many things that make it, and I'm not saying that it's oh, we should abandon all hope ye who enter the balanced land, but it's to say it's a very complicated thing. And when people shit on Riot's balance team, I'm like, we're not supposed to, we're typically not supposed to shit on other companies or compare ourselves that much, but honestly, I have to be go play another game and tell me how they balance their game compared to us. Let me know what they are doing better. And it's one of two things. Either A, they don't have nearly as many problems to solve because their game just doesn't, you know, yeah, chess has needed to nerf white side for thousands of years, but in general, the game's pretty balanced. And it's either too simple in that sense, or they're not doing as good of a job.
Yeah. And I think the chess analogy is awesome because for a game like League, you do have a lot more control over the balance just because there's so many more variables to change. For a game like chess, there's very few real moving pieces. Like you can change which side goes first, how many pieces or how many places a one piece can move. But other than that, there's very few variables you can change. But for League, you have thousands of variables per champion. You have AD scaling, AP scaling, movement speed, AD range. There's just so many amazing pieces that you can tweak to get that little bit of balance. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize when they call for balance changes for champions. It's like, hey, yes, this champion needs a buff, or yes, this champion needs a nerf, but what do we actually touch? Do we just buff their damage? That's only going to be a bandage fix for some of the problems.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna fully defend the balance team. Obviously, oh my god, I'm holding the T button down again. I'm not gonna fully defend the balance team. They make mistakes. They do things that they're probably like, yeah, that was a bad decision. That was a bad change. Like, yeah, that happens. Um, People make mistakes or don't do things perfectly with stuff all the time. Um, I think the general gist of what they have done and accomplished for the game is good, though.
Yeah, I think there's no arguing that League of Legends has remained the most popular game in the world for 10 years on end, with ups and downs throughout the years. There's there's no argument that they're doing something right. And you may have some complaints towards the balance team for certain champions that came out or certain changes they made, but at the end of the day, the game remains popular. The game remains fun for most people. Um, and you just
I don't know about that one, but yeah.
hey, I have fun when I'm playing
I'm
League.
kidding. I love League. Game's great.